Now is the time to digitize and automate yard operations. I'm speaking today with Eric Breen. He is Director of Enterprise Sales with Kaleris. Hello, Eric.
Hi, Bob.
Thanks for being with me. Do you think that the yard is often overlooked as a subject for digitization?
Absolutely. It has been for some time, actually.
Why is that?
I think the investment is been around the yard, which is good, right? We're digitizing the supply chain in general. We know that's been rapidly been an investment for most companies, and that started with inside the warehouse, WMS. We got to get the goods in the right rack, location, pick, put away, and then the transportation costs are so high. I think TMS became the next investment point as far as digitizing. Mm-hmm. And from that perspective, the gap between those two, the TMS and WMS, was the yard. And it's a small area in an actual operation, but it's a very critical area, and it has been handled different ways through the years, typically manually, and it's worked. It's worked.
Wait a minute. I thought it was just a parking lot.
Well, that's what most people think. It is. It's just a parking lot. The problem with it, Bob, is that the parking lot, think about a shipment. You want it to be moving, right? The shipment has to be continually moving. Research has been done that shows that 80% of the delays in the movement of the shipments happens in a yard. Now, not just a truck yard, not a parking lot. It could be a terminal yard, it could be a rail yard, but it's sitting. The goods are sitting, they're not moving. So that is about 80% of the delays happen, and a lot of that is in a truck yard at a warehouse or a factory.
So if I asked you where the opportunities for driving efficiency in supply chain are today, where the big gaps are, is that the culprit?
It is one of the big culprits. It really is. I mean, velocity, we all know, asset utilization, moving goods through the supply chain is critical to an operation, their profitability, their ability to service their customers. So any gap that creates delays or friction, we'll call it, is an opportunity. So you look at a yard, and today many yards are still done with pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, whiteboards, CB radios. Does it get the job done? Yes, but is it optimal? Absolutely not. And compared to what's going on inside the four walls, maybe what's happening over the road with TMS or WMS, it's a far cry from where we need to be. It really
certainly can't have a mismatch where things are going really speedily inside, and meanwhile out here these trucks are just sort of like sitting around, not matching the pace of what's happening in the four walls.
Exactly.
Yeah. So where in the yard do you think where are the most common challenges that yard operators face today based on what we're talking about here?
Well, think about, you said the truck is speeding its way to a warehouse.
Yeah.
And we're tracking that in. We got visibility platforms now. We know when it's going to be there. And it gets to the guard shack, and we're in line with 20 other trailers, other shipments. So we have this instant, this friction point right here trying to get into the yard. So there's an opportunity there. You start at the guard shack. What can we do to digitize that to make it more efficient? Then once we get through the guard shack, that trailer often is just dropped in a sea of trailers. Again, if it's not digitized, it's hard to optimize where that trailer should go. What if it's a factory with raw material, and we need a certain raw material in a certain place at the factory? Well, if it's in the wrong place at the wrong time, it's going to cause frictions down line into the production facility. So,
well, that word digitize can be awfully vague, and it can mean different things depending on what types of functions of the supply chain you want to quote unquote digitize.
Right.
What does it mean specifically from a yard standpoint? What particular types of actions and functions can be automated and quote unquote digitized?
Digitized.
Yeah.
Well, in the yard, it's actually very literal. Let's get that data on a computer. It is that literal. Instead of having a guard, for example, we'll start there. We'll start at the front end. The guard who has the clipboard. He is oftentimes writing down the trailer number, the SCAC, the driver name, the cell number on a piece of paper, and he comes inside, he's done. Let's digitize that to a computer. Maybe go one step further, maybe digitize that to a driver app. Maybe you can do a QR scan to bring in the driver quickly. Maybe there's a kiosk process for multilingual or whatever. There's a lot of ways you can digitize that one process. And as you flow into the yard, something like a yard check. Is the yard check done, again, old school manual pen and paper, or is it on a computer that we can actually have the data that's in real time that can support the rest of the operation of what is there in the yard, when did it get there, what's on the trailer in a digital format so the whole operation can use it. So there's a couple examples there but it is truly literal. Let's get off the paper, let's get it onto a computer. It is that simple in the yard at the base level.
And what you're talking about ultimately is visibility.
It is.
I
Yeah.
would imagine the definition of visibility in the old days of yard operations would be, yeah, it's in the yard.
Yeah, yeah,
Now-
yeah, exactly,
Now
exactly.
there's so many more aspects of that now that you can pin down by
It is.
digital operations. Correct?
Absolutely. Like you said, is it in the yard? Yes. Well, where's in the yard?
Yeah.
When did it get here? What's on it? I mean, down to the SKU level, what is on this trailer? What is the detention rules on that trailer? How long can we keep it before we start getting charged a fee from the carrier? There's a lot of things you have with visibility that really expands the old adages in the yard versus what you can do with that data.
Okay, so I'm an operation. I'm convinced you sold me on the importance of digitizing my yard operations, but I don't know exactly how to start. You
Yep.
know, what are the things I need to consider? What are the criteria I need to bring to bear on choosing the right system? Give me some tips.
Okay, I got three basic areas to answer that question.
Okay.
Number one is the yard management solutions that are out there. There is a plethora of levels, we'll call it. There's some very basic level systems out there. They're fine for a small warehouse, small operation. But you may have a very large warehouse, 100 dock doors, 500 parking spaces. Maybe you're a factory bringing in raw materials, multiple hundreds of vendors. It's very complex. Maybe you have both. What if you have both? If you're an enterprise operation, you have 20 warehouses and 10 manufacturing sites. Well, you don't want to have different solutions. You have to have a solution that can actually fit and be configured to fit the operation, the workflows and processes for that particular site. So that's number one. Number two is the automation, because the next step of digitizing is what do you do with the data? Well, that is to automate. You really need to get the right trailer, in the case of a truck yard, the right trailer to the right door at the right time. Well, if you have people in the process on paper, on Excel spreadsheets, on whiteboards, you can do that, but it's going to have these gaps and these delays throughout the entire life cycle of that asset. You can get automation, and so be thinking about, to answer the question, what do I have to integrate to and how do I integrate to other systems to allow a full-featured automated solution? Do they have APIs? Are those configurable? Are they standard? Is it going to really automate all the steps of the events of a trailer life cycle while that shipment and trailer or asset is on yard? And the third thing is data. No longer can we just have a yard report printed out for the yard manager. That's great for the yard manager. They need that. What about the corporation? They're doing big transportation deals with the big carriers. Are they performing well in St. Louis but poorly in Atlanta? You have to have visibility of all the data for all the sites and all the operational pieces that go into a yard itself. So yes, the yard manager needs his data, he needs his reports, but what does the corporation need? Do you have the ability to dump data into a data lake for the BI team to analyze and aggregate with WMS or TMS to optimize planning and shortening that supply chain life cycle, if you will, of that shipment?
Hey, Eric, thank you so much for explaining to us what's going on in the yard these days and why it is so important to digitize those operations for maximum efficiency in a warehouse operation. Thanks for that. I do want to take a moment, though, to ask you about Kaleris and how it fits into this whole picture.
Sure. Well, Kaleris is an aggregation of multiple companies focused on execution software. Now, we talked about visibility, and that means a lot of things to different people, right? Well, visibility not necessarily doesn't make things happen. So our solution set, whether it be in the truck space, the rail space, or the ocean or terminal marine space, our software solutions make things happen. They execute movements. They move goods through these different modes and nodes of transportation. So we're aggregating those different nodes. So like I mentioned, we have truck, we have rail, and we have terminal operations for the marine side. And that's given us the opportunity to really solve the difficult problems in the supply chain. We're tackling the execution part. Visibility comes along with that. We can tell you where things are at along that chain, if you will, but making things happen is what Kaleris is really focused on.
Eric, again, thank you so much for talking to
Thank
me
you,
about
Bob.
this subject. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I've been speaking with Eric Breen of Kaleris. Thank you very much for watching.